door closed.
Okay, here we go.
9 o'clock, time to conduct the business of the Wayne County Board of Commissioners. I'd like to ask everyone in the audience, if you have a cell phone, please turn it off or put it on vibrate. Thank you for cooperation in that. We've had the swearing-in ceremony for District 4 Commissioner, Mr. Joe A. Gurley III this morning. Joe, welcome aboard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Uh, 9 o'clock briefing. Mr. Wood, if you want to go over.
Okay. Of course, we've got the invocation and pledge of allegiance, then the approval of minutes. Under the consent agenda, I think Marcia's saying we've got a closed session. Then the public comments. Oh, okay. Yeah, we've got several things for the closed session, but we'll get into that later. Under the consent agenda, we have a permission to allow the Downtown Goldsboro Development Corporation to use the courthouse grounds for their annual dinner. They've done this in the past, so we felt like this was a standard thing and could go on the consent agenda. We're also asking that you reschedule the July 15th meeting. We have two commissioners that'll be at NACO and they will not be back until that evening. So we're asking that you bump that meeting up by one day to the 16th. So it'd be on a Wednesday instead of Tuesday. Under new business, we're going to have a presentation today on the State Veterans Cemetery. Bill, I think you're working on it.
I've been in touch with Eli. I hope I get his last name right, Panay. And he's been keeping myself, but I've been trying to share those emails I've been getting from him with the rest of the commissioners and the media as well. But he's prepared to actually be here today to give us an update, and look forward to hearing from him. And the biggest thing I like about what he's doing is he decided not to retire. He's going to see this project all the way through to the end, because the man's got like 30, 40 years of experience doing that. So he's the guy we want in charge.
Great. Then we have a motion to approve Dobbs County Estates Section 10 Final Subdivision Plat, and Chip is here. Mr. Chairman, would you like us to go ahead and go over that?
Let's go over it. I mean, let's
That way we can save some time.
save some time. We push for time today.
Chip, you want to do it?
What we have is Dobbs County Estates Section 10. The owner developer is Grace Jones. B.R. Carnegie is the surveyor. It's located in the New Hope Township on Dobbs County Courthouse Road. The schedule for lots 81 through 90. There are 10 lots total with 2 tracts designed as open space. It's a total of 18.55 acres. It is along the SR 1729 Dobbs County Courthouse Road, just west of 1731 Piney Grove Church Road. It is zoned within an outer horizontal district, which is a height-only restriction, and the property is within a rural area on the growth strategy map for Wayne County. There will be one new street, Emmett and Angie's Drive, which is a cul-de-sac off of Grace's Farm Road. All the lots, except Lot 86, will front on interior streets. The existing Bizzle Cemetery, which is owned by others, is located between lots 84 and 85. Stormwater runoff requirements are being met by setting aside the 2 tracts of open space. If further development occurs on that open space, it would have to be remapped, and stormwater detention devices would have to be installed. It is within the Spring Creek School District, the Elroy Fire District, EMS Station 1, East Wayne Water. It is within the Goldsboro MPO. It's no watershed. There's no voluntary ag districts. It is in Commissioners District 5, voting precinct number 14. There's no flood zones and no wetlands present. The Wayne County Planning Board recommends approval.
Any questions for Chip?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Daugherty?
why have you got the revised permanently protected and managed open spaces? Why are
As a subdivision, when a preliminary is turned in, they may have 100 lots designed for a piece of property, and as they develop a section by section, in order to prevent the developer from designing and installing the stormwater detention device, one way to offset that is to set aside open space, permanently protected open space. In case the subdivision is never developed fully or the design changes due to considerations on site such as septic or soil considerations. So as a section develops, to meet that stormwater requirements that the state has, each section has to stand on its own. So in this particular case, for this section, to prevent them from installing the stormwater detention device, they had to set aside that many acres to meet the requirements. If they go any further on those lots, with more residential lots, then they'll have to install their device that they have shown, drawn down here, which they submitted on their preliminary.
But it's showing a detention pond over here.
Yes, sir. But it's not installed correct. It's installed as a construction detention pond. It's not a permanent detention pond until such time as it's needed. You know, sedimentation and erosion control with the Division of Water Quality dictates that they maintain erosion control on site while the subdivision is being developed. Once the subdivision is developed, a lot of those devices come out. The type of stormwater device that we're required to enforce is a permanent style device.
Well,
So that really doesn't mean permanent, they'd have to install a device later on if they did want to extend, right? So what you're saying?
If they don't want to extend or develop any further lots, they meet their stormwater requirements by dedicating this open space.
But if they did, then they would have to go back and
Correct.
install the device you're saying, so they're not
Correct.
permanently shut out, so permanently doesn't really mean.
That's correct.
permanent. Okay, I just want to be sure.
Well, I'm sorry, I don't want to get into too much question, but it seems like, from what I'm seeing here, you got 5, 6, 7, about 8 acres is set aside for,
Correct.
and in looking at the size of this subdivision, you can't expand it any further, can you? It doesn't look like there's any room for
They could
expansion.
expand it into that open space if they install devices to reduce nitrogen load and runoff. Because they're handling stormwater not just for this section, but all the previous sections that were built out there.
And this map is not showing all of
Oh,
This is just
okay.
one
So
section.
Basically, you're
This is just
adding this section to another
Correct.
section.
This,
Okay.
this is about the
It's
fifth,
cumulative.
this is about what, the fifth,
The
or
10th.
sixth, the 10th add-on to this subdivision.
Oh, okay.
And I'm not sure of the total number of lots out there, but it's probably in the 50 to 60 total
I was just
lots.
looking at about 7 or 8 lots here, and you were
Correct.
setting aside. so
But this is handling the load for sections 1 through 9 also.
many. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Chip.
Yes, sir.
I do, while you're up, I want to clarify one thing that I had it asked me, not on this particular, plot, but, for everyone's information, correct me if I'm wrong, the setback on a lot is 30 feet in the front, 25 feet in the back, 10 foot on each side?
Correct.
And that's to dwelling or any outbuildings?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And also to clarify that one more, on any secondary road, it's a 60-foot front setback, back from the secondary road. But like on these interior streets, on like these new street, this Grace and Emmett and Grace's cul-de-sac, it would have a 30-foot front setback on that. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, you ready for a motion for approval?
He's ready to get the details out of the way.
Get the details out of the way, Joe.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. The next thing then is the Leadership Wayne Class Project presentation, and as the memo said, Steve Cross will be here to give you about a 10-minute talk on that. And we thought it was a worthwhile program, and we just want to give some publicity to it. And Steve participated in that class in the last year. So, okay, and then I'm going to give you an update on school financing of Grantham Middle School and Spring Creek Middle School projects and the Local Government Commission application. And we'll go over that at the meeting. And that should take probably 7 to 10 minutes, and we'll get that out of the way. Then we have a closed session, public comments. I have several comments I wanted to make to you, but I have 3 things, Mr. Chairman, we'd like to add if we could.
Yes, sir.
I was doing them under my comments, and then I realized several of them are going to take action from you. So if you don't mind, I'd like to add those.
This being a new business?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So the first one is, and I'd like to give these packets out. I don't know, Marcia, did we get, no, it's all right. Did we get this first packet with the gateway? I put,
Is that the one you just gave me?
yeah. We have 2 packets for you today. Did you get the first one already or not? If you go to the second page of this packet, you'll see that we have a letter of retirement, announcing his retirement, and this is from David Ward, our tax administrator. David and I have been talking probably for the last couple of months. He has, believe it or not, almost 40 years of service to the county. And
Is that more than Joe?
yeah. So he, I believe if he had stayed through the end of the year, it would have been 40 years, if I'm not mistaken. So we've been talking about that for a couple of months. He's made a firm decision that he wants to retire at this point. And so what I wanted to do there is, number one, make you aware of it. His last day will be August 1. And so you may not be aware of it, but the tax administrator job is one that you appoint, not the county manager. It's one of the few in the state law requires that the board approves. And so what I'm going to recommend to you, and this would take action today, or if you want to wait and take it 2 weeks from now, is my recommendation to you is, having been through this, is that I would suggest that we have a committee of 2 commissioners and myself act as a committee to go through and group, excuse me, it's not a committee, it's a group. Have a group of 2 commissioners and myself to review these applications and then make a recommendation back to you, and we would go through the interview process and that sort of thing. So I'm asking that you appoint this group of 2 commissioners and county manager to make a recommendation to the full BOC. And again, I just want to stress, this job is appointed by the Board of Commissioners, not the county manager. The manager does supervise the tax administrator, but it's your appointment. And this is a very critical job for the county, because as I'm sure y'all are aware, the tax administrator not only collects the taxes, but they are the chief assessor. So when you go through your 8-year revaluation, it's critical you have somebody who's extremely knowledgeable on this. We're very fortunate to have David. The other thing we will be doing at the next meeting is, my recommendation to you is that we appoint the Assistant Tax Administrator, Alan Lumpkin, as the interim. And by law, this position has to be filled at all times. Alan has all of the certifications under state law. And in fact, I'll go ahead and tell you that I think we're going to be hard-pressed to find anybody that's better than him for the job. But we'll put him in, my recommendation is you put him in on an interim basis, and then decide whatever process you want to go through as far as recruiting and that sort of thing. So if we'll add that one. The second item is, if you go back to the first page now, both the chairman and Commissioner Daugherty and I have been meeting with Gateway and representatives of the city. And as y'all know, their cash balances are somewhat low, and that's why, part of the reason why we needed the rate increase. What we're recommending to you and what we've been recommending to them is that both the city and county loan them money the first 6 to 7 months of each year, because as Commissioner Bell knows, a lot of their grant money doesn't come in until the 7th or 8th month. So what we're proposing here, what we proposed at our most recent meeting was that whatever monies they got in that were not monthly, now they get the rate, the fares and everything in monthly, but what they don't get in monthly, give us a total on that, and we would write them a check at the beginning of each quarter to handle their cash flow. And then, of course, they'll pay us back in the spring as their grant money comes back in. So I got the memo from Lynn Lamberth, and you'll see that where she gave us the numbers, and then I addressed an email back to both her and to Pam where we discussed this morning about doing a 1/4 of the grant funds. And so they basically are needing $414,477. We simply divided that by 4, so we would need to write a check for $103,619.25. And I'm asking you to approve that so that we can get that check cut this week. And again, that goes down as a loan. So we show it as a loan to them. It'll come back in before year end. So it doesn't really require a budget amendment, but it does require action of this board, because we can't make a loan to another agency without your approval. So that's what I'm asking, that you put that on the agenda.
Question.
Yeah.
Did you say the city was also participating?
They're going to do it on their side.
Okay, this is for the.
This is for the rural
side.
system.
Okay.
And they may have different numbers, but as you know, we're financially responsible for the rural, they're financially responsible for the urban. So
Okay.
whatever their number is, I think Councilmember Aycock committed that they were going to talk to their people about doing the same thing on their side. So I would just ask if y'all have anything you want to add to that, because you were in the meetings.
No, I'm fine with it.
Okay. So we'd like to add that, the approval of that loan. And then the last thing is, Milford and Noel and I, we have sent out an RFQ for professional engineering services. And this is for, as y'all know, we're responsible for the wastewater treatment at Grantham and Spring Creek, the two new middle schools. And Spring Creek will be relatively easy, because we're about 4/10 of a mile from the nearest sewer line, so it's really just an extension of gravity sewer there. But we will need to get it designed, permitted by Diener, and constructed. The other one, Grantham, we're hoping to do an on-site wastewater treatment plan there. But again, all of these both of them have to be done by a licensed professional engineer. The plan submitted to North Carolina Diener, the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, for approval and permits, and then we'll bid it out for construction. This should be a relatively small operation. Consequently, I didn't want to tie up a lot of your time in doing this, but we're having the interviews tomorrow from 1 to 2. So if anybody does want to sit in on those, you're more than welcome to do that. What we're requesting is, in the interest of time, is that you authorize Commissioner Mayo as the chairman of the Facilities Committee, Milford, myself, and Noel to select among the 2 finalists to select the finalists and negotiate a contract on this and move forward with it. And of course, whatever we do, we will come back to you and let you know what we've done and who we've selected and the contract and everything. So that's what we're asking you to do, is add that to it. Milford, is there anything you want to add? Oh, he's left. Guess not. Okay, but that's where we're at on that one. We do anticipate at this point we'll be able to do an on-site system. And Mr. Chairman, those are the three items that I needed to add.
Okay. Then we have the 10 o'clock public comment section. And the county manager's comments, board of commissioners' comments. Excuse me. And we do need to go into closed session. At what point do we need to go in? Our meeting is scheduled to start at 9:30.
Yeah, I don't think we have time for that now. If you like, I could go over my comments, and that'll eat up the rest of the time.
That'd be fine.
Okay. But I've already talked to you about David Ward's letter announcing his retirement. And again, my recommendation will be to name Alan Lumpkin as the interim at the next meeting. We've already talked about the gateway rates. The next thing I have is this other packet that she's given you out that has this sheet on top. We wanted to go over the the LGC application update. Our application is in. The LGC meets at 2:30 this afternoon. We still do not know. We're scheduled to be on the agenda, but we do not know if the issue of the final permit has been resolved or not. We didn't know that as of this morning, and to my knowledge, we still don't know. But we talked to the LGC as late as about 5:30 last night, and we're still waiting to hear, because they're still waiting to hear.
Were we not told that all the permits were in place or had been applied for? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Duggar.
Could they possibly approve it subject to?
We don't know. We think they may. We just,
Asked that they would. We have asked that they would if we didn't have what we had.
yeah. We've done everything we know to do on it. Yeah, the basic problem is that one of the permits has been approved. The other, for some reason, was not submitted simultaneously. And while the schools are virtually identical, except one has about 8 more classrooms than the other, the Department of Insurance, their building inspectors, still have to go through everything. And so consequently, they have not finished their final review on it, is the problem. And so we have asked that they put it at the top of their stack. They've done that. We have asked, the LGC has said, just give them some indication that there won't be any major changes. And one of the things we did nail down was that all of the changes that the Department of Insurance requested on the one school they approved had been included in the bid specs, because that could have made a difference on if we were facing change orders or not. And we were assured by the architect and the Board of Education that those changes have been included, and it was bid out with those changes. So we're not anticipating a lot of changes because of the what the Department of Insurance may come up with, because we feel like we've already covered them. And that gave the LGC a lot more comfort too, because their concern is all about the financing. They want to know that we're borrowing an adequate amount of money to do the project. So, anything anybody wants to add? Okay. Well, what I'd like to do now is go over this sheet with you. On the construction cost, the base bid was $34,773. Working alternate bids was $1.8 million. Other construction costs, and that includes general conditions, performance of payment bonds, insurance, and construction management fees, is $4.33 million. So the subtotal is $40,922,777. Now, the BOE requested that the construction manager handle some purchases for them. One was the case goods throughout the two schools, and that's $1.2 million. Artwork and signage, $326,452. Commissioning, kitchen equipment, $516,950. And then some other CM handled purchase costs. That comes to a total of $2,653,916. Of that, only $300,000 of that, the commissioning is the responsibility of the Board of Commissioners. The other is being paid by the schools. So when you get to the other side of the ledger and you look at the use of funds and the source of funds, so the guaranteed maximum price, that's what GMP means. And just to refresh your memory, when you use a construction manager at risk, he gives you a guaranteed maximum price. That's $43,581,694. The architect fee, as y'all know, was $2 million. The construction administration, $885,000. That's a contract that the school board entered into with the architectural firm for construction administration and inspection services. The cost of issuance of the bonds is $232,000. Other cost and contingency, $282,701. So the total use of funds is $46,981,396. And the sources of funds are as follows. Y'all recall that the Wayne County Board of Education committed to $5 million. They have also committed to pay for the case goods, the artwork, signage, other CM handled purchases, so they're up an additional $1.664 million for a total of $6,664,446. They also will be paying another $516,950 because we had agreed that always the kitchen work was coming out of their cafeteria fund. That's what those funds are used for. It's a separate fund dealing with all of their food services. The sales tax reimbursement, of course, is a reduction because we'll be getting that back. So what Pam and I have discussed and agreed to is we will front the money and then we'll get the sales tax reimbursement back on the back end. So after you do all of that, you back into what do we need to borrow. And so what we need to borrow is $38,600,000. Now, one other caveat on this, that price may go down. When we got the bids in, it took the schools about 5 working days or so to compile everything and get it over to us. Once we did that, we had a very quick meeting with them that afternoon from about 3 to 5 o'clock. The reason was that we needed to get everything up to the LGC by 5 o'clock that afternoon. So we had a very quick meeting. The chairman was there, Commissioner Doherty was there, Pam and myself and Borden. Went over all of this, and that's also where we got them to commit on the $1.6 million additional. Of course, the kitchen stuff had always been committed to by them. So that's part of why we wanted that meeting, was to clarify who's paying for what before we pulled the trigger on how much we had to borrow. And so that's what that meeting was. There's one other caveat to all of this. The price may go down a little bit more. We agreed at that point we'd have one more meeting before we close on the bonds, because we can borrow up to the 38.6 that we talked about with the LGC, but it's up to, so we can take less than that. There's 2 items we still need to talk about with them. One is they had put back in terrazzo floors, and when we were negotiating before, I think we had taken that out, and that's about $440,000. So that's a big chunk of money. The other thing is they put in 2 solar trees, and one at each school. And basically what that is, it's like a structure or a framing that the wires and everything coming off the school roofs where the solar panels are come down, and then they view it as an educational tool. It is not essential to the solar array panels, and they said that. They wanted it simply to show the students that they had a solar panel system in place. We didn't think $132,000 needed to be spent to do that. In fact, I think one of our people recommended a simple plaque would do that, and I agree with that. But nonetheless, that's another $132,000, so we're up to about $570,000 something dollars we think we could take out of the project and really not negatively impact it. So the way we left it was we would have one additional meeting between the same parties that were there before and come to a resolution on those two issues before the closing, because then we can get with Davenport and adjust the price to reflect whatever we agree to there.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. We need to go ahead and start
Okay.
the regular meeting. If
All
there's
right.
anything else you need to cover on this, we'll do it in the regular
Okay.
meeting. It's 9:30, time to conduct the regular business of the Wayne County Board of Commissioners. Again, I ask if you have cell phones or pagers, please either cut them off or put them on silent mode. And I'll have the invocation today. Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for today. Thank you for your many blessings. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to come together as a board and conduct the business of the County of Wayne. Lead and guide us in making the right decisions. We feel that it's a great responsibility for us to be put in this position to make the decisions for Wayne County. Help us to agree and disagree and still walk out of the meeting in accord. Also, dear God, thank you for our men and women in uniform. They're the reason that we have the opportunity to be here today. They sacrifice so much, and our veterans that have sacrificed even more. Some gave their lives to give us the freedom and the privilege of being here. We ask all this in your name. Amen. Mr. Mayor, let's stand, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Adjustments to the agenda. I think we've basically been over the adjustments.
Yes, sir.
You want to hit them again right
Yes, sir.
quick?
We have three add-ons. One is establishing a committee to make a recommendation on a new tax administrator since Mr. David Ward has announced his retirement. We need a decision on whether or not to do a cash flow loan to Gateway. And then the third one is the hiring of a professional engineer for the design of the wastewater system extensions and on-site system at Spring Creek and Grantham Middle Schools.
Any of the commissioners have anything they need to add? None, we'll move on. Approval of the minutes for the June 11th and June 17th meeting, Board of Adjustments meeting. It was on June the 17th.
Mr. Chairman, if you would have the commissioners' meeting minutes approved separate from the Board of Adjustment, I think that Commissioner Cromartie probably should not vote on the minutes. on the Board of Adjustment since he did not participate in that.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Doughty.
I move approval of a commissioner meeting of the minutes of June the 11th and June 17th.
I have a motion on the floor. Any discussion? No discussion. All in favor of the motion, show your sign of right hand. Motion carries unanimous. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Day.
I'll make a motion to we approve the Board of Adjustment meeting we held on June 17 without Commissioner Cromartie participating.
I have a motion on the floor. Any discussion? No discussion. All in favor, show your sign of right hand. Vote was 6. New unfinished business. Consent agenda. 2 items on the consent agenda. Permission to allow Downtown Goldsboro Development Corporation to use the courthouse grounds on September the 19th for their annual dinner. Reschedule the July 15th Board of Commissioners meeting to July the 16th due to a conflict with some of our commissioners being out of town.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Cromartie.
I move the consent agenda be approved as printed and previously discussed.
Thank you, Mr. Cromartie. Any discussion? No discussion. All in favor, show your sign of right hand. Motion carries unanimous. New business. State Veteran Cemetery in Wayne County presentation. Mr. Page, if you would.
Eli, if you would come up. I'm never really sure what your last name is. Is it Panay? Okay, I'll get it right on. We appreciate you coming today, and I really appreciate the fact that you're going to see this project through, because he had been threatening retirement, but I told him earlier before you came here that we needed a man with your years of experience to see this through, and I certainly appreciate your doing that and coming today. Give us an update.
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to be before you and update you on what's going on with the State Veteran Cemetery, and we are calling it the Eastern Carolina State Veteran Cemetery. And the reason for that is, as you know, Jacksonville has a Coastal Carolina State Veteran Cemetery. But by using the name Eastern Carolina State Veteran Cemetery, what it's going to do is allow those that do live in the East to say, hey, we're part of that, and we flew it, and all the way from the Virginia border all the way down. What you have is a rendering, but that has changed dramatically. And all I have is a very large picture to show you what that is. But as you know, the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs State Cemetery Grants Office is the one that is funding this particular project. The state state legislature put up $600,000 initially, and what that was done was to provide the funds in order to hire an architect to go ahead and design it. We're working with SFL+A, design firm out of Fayetteville. So what we have right now is this project has changed, and basically that was going to be the 5-year plan. 50-year plan. That's the master plan. And when we had to develop it, we had to develop it to show that it would exist for 50 years. And so what we are going to do when we start the construction is actually do a phase 1. And the phase 1 will actually just go into about the first 200 meters. And that's the front. And that's all that the budget will allow. So the only other thing I can really do, and what I wanted to do, because we are still continuing to make some changes, and I have some handouts that I can show you. It'll show you what the administrative building looks like, what the committal shelter would look like, and what the maintenance building would look like. So if you don't mind, sir. I'll
Yes, sir.
pass it down.
Do you have it?
Thanks.
The first pictures are what the administrative building is designed to look like. And then behind that is the floor plan. We've gone through a lot of changes, but right now, as far as VA, and I'm talking about the federal people, are concerned, as far as the federal people are concerned, this design of this particular building is locked in, and so is the design of the second feature, which is the committal shelter. Committal shelter is where we will hold the services. Right in the middle of the initial design, presented by the SFLA designer, VA came in and changed the whole thing. They changed square footage and how much we were allowed, changed the height of the building, so we had to take off the initial roof that we had. So we had to make a lot of changes. And right now, we're still making changes. We talked to VA people last Wednesday, and they directed that we make about another 9 more changes, not so much in the building, but in the grounds that are going to be done. The maintenance building is going to change. Part of that you see in the maintenance building is going to have to be cut off, and we're going to have to make that as what we call an ad alternate to the design features. And the reason for that is in order to save money for the grounds. One of the problems that we have with this particular site is it has a pretty high water level. It's up to 5 feet, and the environmental company that did the study showed that the groundwater is at 5 feet. So what we're going to have to do is we're actually going to have to put in fill about close to 2.5 feet in order to designate a burial site. And so by putting in the fill, that's going to pretty much bite into a lot of the money that we probably would have used from some other ground features. The casket sites, we initially will probably have, we're going to be starting out with close to 6,000 casket sites and over 985 cremation sites, and these are in-ground sites. One of the things unique to this particular cemetery, and it's not, I do not have that at my other 3 state veteran cemeteries, is we are going to put in what we call pre-placed crypts. These are crypts that go down into the ground. And what that does, it's going to save the veterans and their families money. Right now, at my other 3 cemeteries, families have to furnish us with either what we call a vault or a concrete liner in order to place the casket when they're buried. Here at this particular cemetery, they won't have to do that because we'll have these pre-placed crypts. So all we do is just bury the casket or the cremations, the urns. And so that's probably going to save families anywhere from $700 to $1,000. So that's a rural savings. We will have what we call a columbarium, niches where they can put above ground urns. We'll have 868 to start out with. And we probably, if we can work it out, we'll probably double that. But it all depends on what the budget is. An additional columbarium will be provided in what we call the ad alternate. So we do have some ad alternates to try to improve that. Initially, we think that burials in the first month will probably run somewhere between 10 to 16. It'll start out slow and it'll begin to pick up. But one of my plans is to do a lot of public relations, and how we will do this is going through what we call our county service officers, veteran service officers, and have them contact the various veterans organizations, and then also work with some of the newspapers in not just Goldsboro, but the surrounding counties in order to make them aware of this. A lot of the county service officers in the eastern part of North Carolina are already aware of the fact that this is going to be built. And where we stand right now is, last night, when I got back into the office, I found that we had a letter to proceed, and this is from the VA, which told us we can go ahead and start the bidding process for this particular project, that the plans are approved, and we can go ahead and start. When I talked to the State Construction Office this morning, they told me they hope to do what we call a pre-bid conference, meet with all the contractors that are interested in bidding on the job, to do pre-bid conference somewhere around the 15th or 16th, 17th, somewhere in that particular time of July, which is only 2 weeks away. And then the actual bid for the contract would be somewhere around the end of this month or very early in August, the very first week of August. So we're moving pretty quickly on this particular project. Project is expected to take, and it really depends upon the weather conditions, but we're looking at about a 10-month construction time to do this. So if we start, let's say, in September, and that's what we're hoping, that we're able to start at that particular time, we figured it would be done by June or July. And at that time, and as we go through this, I will keep Mr. Pate advised of where we are in the progress of this. Other than that, you have any questions?
Any questions?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, initially, how many grave sites will be available initially?
Graves, in terms of casket sites,
Yes.
that'll be 1,968.
Okay, so it's going to be developed in different
Yeah,
times as needed.
when we develop like the phase one, it's, we designed it so that it would last at least, meet any requirements for at least a period of 10 years. And then after a 10-year period, if we're getting close, and let's say if we start filling up in an 8-year period, we can always go in for an expansion.
Thank you.
Sir.
Mr. Kamara.
What is the total acreage of the entire site right now?
73 acres.
7 to 3.
Yes, sir.
73.
I had one question. I think you've already answered it. Cremation, did you say that those urns would be underground?
We'll have both in-ground cremation sites and above-ground cremation.
Okay.
We have that option.
Okay. Because I've had several to ask me, was that going to be available?
Yes, sir.
And I didn't know, but thank you.
Well, that's a trend right now, that all the VA cemeteries that are being developed now both go for in-ground and above-ground.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Pate.
Again, I want to thank you for coming today, and I'd be remiss if I didn't let you know that Andy Anderson, former commissioner, could not be here today. I told him he could pull you up and watch you on tape, because he's very interested in this, as you well know.
Mr. Anderson's really been involved in this.
Yes, he has.
And working with me, and I do appreciate that, because he sort of helped me get this thing through. I did want to tell you that I appreciate Mr. Parker, Borden Parker, who did all the legal work for us and got through this. Right now, in terms of the deed, it's not been complete yet, and I'm laying that on the Attorney General's office. They're still messing around with that and trying to get it done, but other than that, everything came through. We're ready to go once the Attorney General's office completes everything.
And just one other thing, please, let me finish, and then I'll let you have it. If you'll do like, we've been doing, just keep me up in the loop with the email, and I've been sharing those emails with the commissioners and with the local media too, because this is important, and everybody wants to know how it's progressing. And thank you so much for your work on this.
I just wanted to ask Mark, the Cortege, CRTG, I may not pronounce right, arrival, the Cortege, arrival,
Means the flow, the hearse and the car, family and the cars.
the cart and the horse. Yeah. The arrival of the cart, is that something that it will be replicated just like it is in Washington DC? Yes.
No. Well, yeah, that, we're planning that roundabout right there.
Okay.
That's just so they can pull off if they want to. But I tell you, most of the services that we do are really, really simple.
Oh, okay. But it is possible, I mean,
It's possible to do that, and I know that, like today, and I have to be for Fayetteville, because we're burying a general officer up at my state veteran cemetery in Spring Lake. He's gonna have case on, which is, they're gonna put it on, it's gonna be drawn by a horse. He's a retired general, World War II Korea Vietnam veteran, so they're gonna do it big time for him, so.
Well, and the reason I asked that was for public consumption, because that's such a ceremony. Reason a lot of folks go to the National Cemetery in Washington D.C. is to see all that, the whole fantastic ceremony, and just to know that it could happen here if given.
It's really up to the family, that's, but that's an expense that the family has to bear. And that was another thing I wanted to let you know. One of the things in the operation of the particular cemetery is, when we bury a veteran, we get $722 for every veteran that we bury, and that comes from the VA. And a dependent burial will cost the family $400, and that's considerably lower than any other private site here in the eastern part of North Carolina. So we really will be saving veterans and their families a lot of money if they choose to be buried.
Thank you. Any other questions? Again, thank you for coming.
Yes, sir.
We do appreciate it. Motion to approve Dobbs County Estate Section 10, final subdivision plat. We've basically gone over that plat. Is in there. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
I have a motion on the floor to approve Dobbs County Estate Section 10. Any other discussion? No other discussion. All in favor, show sign of right hand. Motion carries unanimously. Leadership Wayne class project presentation.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Steve Cross. I'm the IT Director here for Wayne County. The last Leadership Wayne class I attended and graduated, and it was kind of an eye-opener for me. I'm not from Wayne County. I've lived here almost 19 years, but I really didn't know a whole lot about Wayne County until I went into this program. And it took a couple of people pulling my leg before I finally said, okay, I'll do it. But when I entered this program, and it's a 9-month program, it was really a really good experience for me. I learned a lot about Wayne County. But that's not really what I want to talk about. The Leadership Wayne program, and I'm just going to read just the first paragraph that I have here about Leadership Wayne. It's a program of the Wayne County Chamber of Commerce, and it's designed to create a core of leaders dedicated to the betterment of the community through service. And they take emerging leaders in Wayne County from all different organizations around the county. And organizations can send them to this Leadership Wayne class, and they can, each year the class does a project that any organization in Wayne County can submit if they have some work that they want done. The class can take on that project. It's selected by the Chamber of Commerce. There may be, however many applications come in, the Chamber and the Regents will select the class project for the upcoming class. And they'll gather all of the projects, for the upcoming class, and the new class will select the project that they want to do. This past year, we raised around $10,000 for the project. So we were able to do a lot of things for our project. But there are, and I'll just read a couple of the projects that have been done in the past. There's both nonprofit agencies, and it doesn't really matter if it's a nonprofit or not. You can submit your project if you're an organization and you have some work that needs to be done. Some of the previous classes, the Battered Women's Shelter, I guess they did some renovations to that facility. The Paupers Cemetery, they did an environmental upgrade. Community Soup Kitchen of Goldsboro, they did some work there. A facility upgrade. Wayne County Services on Aging, prior to the new facility, they renovated the dining facility for that building when it was located over here. The Herman Park Playground restoration, they did that project. Boys and Girls Clubs, electronic books, which I'm not sure what kind of devices they were, but similar to an iPad. And the Wayne Opportunity Center, where they renovated the indoor and outdoor break rooms for the folks over there. You know, one of the reasons that I wanted to do this was because, you know, I was in the Air Force for 21 years, and I've been to leadership schools, I've been to the NCO academies. Air Force has some of the best training in the world. And I was very, very impressed with how the Chamber of Commerce has designed and set up this program for the Leadership Wing. Very well organized, very well done. And I would recommend anyone going through this program. It's such a good program, and it's so well organized. And you know, what I'm hoping is that as you know, as commissioners, you touch every part of this community, and just keep it in the back of your head, in your mind, that you know, if you do come across an organization that might benefit from this, you know, the next application is due by September 5th. So you can go to the Wayne County Chamber of Commerce website, and they can download the application. If they have any questions, they can call the Chamber. Charlotte Watson or Janet Brock or any of the folks over there can answer any questions that anybody has about this program. And you know, again, it's a wonderful program. I was really impressed with it. Learned a lot about Wayne County, Wayne County's history, and that's pretty much my presentation. I just want to bring more awareness to this program. It's a great program.
Thank you, Steve. Any questions for Steve?
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Okay, it's. It's 10 o'clock, time for the public comment section. If anyone has any comments they want to make, at this time, come forward, state your name, address, phone number, and time limit to 4 minutes.
Tom Drew, P.O. Box 587, Goldsboro, 27533. Old regular message, heal the messenger. I know some people are concerned about me repeating questions, but there is one I do repeat anytime there's a new member on the board or situation as a new county manager. And as the state of education and democracy is a threat to national and international security, is any new or old member of the board or county manager who welcomes at a time and place of mutual convenience healthy discussion of that reality? If so, let me know. Thus far, Board of Education, Board of Commissioners, Board of Elections, state and county, been no known response. As the News Argus article June 23rd raised points of consternation about being able to speak before this board in minutes and other matters, and my actions were inclusive there. I sought multiple clarifications of what that article said from the county manager. There's been no known response to that request. Several years back, I was speaking during public comment when I got done. The understanding is the county manager turned to the county attorney and addressed, can we restrict that to once a year? The county attorney responded, we can, and a second or two later said, you can. Not sure what that was that the county manager was speaking to. I addressed this matter, the best I recall, with the county manager and county attorney, seeking to understand what that was that they were referring to. Was it public comment? Is it correct that it can be restricted to once a year? Do you recall that communication to you? as county attorney, Mr. Parker?
Yes.
Do you know if there was any known response to that question?
No.
Well, the history of public comment, county did have it before the state mandated it in the summer of 2005. Prior to that, if you got to every meeting, it was at the end, you had to be there, prepared to wait long or short. They may leave early, be late, but you could utilize it. Then, the state mandated, and I think the board requested Mr. Parker to review that and come back. Basically, at that time, the county board restricted it to once a month. Cut up the citizens' ability to speak in half. Give us 1 minute. Also, you had one meeting in the other month in the evening, you reverse that, and you're reversing this, what next? Would be once a year. My review of the statutes, I need to recheck it again. It does not clarify how many minutes. Y'all could reduce it to 30 seconds, as far as I know right now. I did stand before this board, talking about me repeating it, and I've repeated it several times before then, addressing that I had an idea to begin stabilizing and turning the suicide crisis around in 30 days on a shoestring budget, not play games with an idea like that. Several months ago, I did share. Now, I got another pop quiz this morning. Is there anyone on this board could tell me what that idea, that simple idea that I shared that day on a shoestring budget to begin stabilizing and turning the suicide crisis around? And to give you a clue, it has to do with this. You wonder why I hold this. I had a bigger sign last time. Sure like to know if there's anyone on this board on East Point's board.
Thank you, Mr. Drew. Anyone else have any comments for public comment session at this time? We are back in session. Before we move on to the next item, I do want to make one quick comment in reference to some of the things that Mr. Drew was saying. At the last meeting, I did make a motion that we cut back to 3 minutes. The majority of the board felt like they didn't need to stay at 4 minutes, and the majority rules. And as far as being limited to one time a year, I've been on this board almost 2 years, and I've never heard that mentioned. It may have been in previous boards, but I've never heard that mentioned on limiting anybody to 1 minute. I don't think that would be appropriate to do for the citizens of Wayne County, and I just want that on the record. Next item, update on the school financing for Grantham and Spring Creek.
Mr. Chairman, I think I went over it pretty well at the briefing, but if you'd like me to go back over anything, or if anybody has any questions, the bottom line on it is that our borrowing as of right now would be $38,600,000. The school's contribution would be $6,664,446 out of their general fund, or lottery and sales tax monies. And then the school cafeteria fund would fund $516,950 worth of kitchen equipment in the two schools. As I said earlier, the LGC is meeting this afternoon at 2:30. As it stands right now, we are on the agenda, and we're hoping that everything will pass muster with them, and we can move forward with it as soon as possible. Because these are the bids that have come in on all of the subcontractor work to the construction manager at risk. So once the LGC approves the financing, then we'd be ready to proceed with the actual construction.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Pate.
LGC takes monthly, is that correct?
Monthly.
So if they don't approve, if there's not a design and a permit is not completed and they don't approve it, so we won't have to be put off for another month, is that correct?
That's correct. You would lose a month.
That would sort of endanger the opening date that they're looking at, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
And the other thing it would do is that our bids at the 3.55% interest rate, which is excellent, do not hold until August. We got them to hold them into, I think it's July 20-something.
That's great.
So we would have to go back and get an extension on that, or go back and get bids on that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, Mr. Doherty?
Question arrived, and of course, when we got hit with this additional 2.3 million in purchases that were thrown into the mix, is it my understanding all of those items are actually being purchased from or by the school board?
Yes.
And if that's the case, is it my understanding they would not be entitled to a tax credit for the sales tax on purchasing those items?
That would be correct, unless we try to run them through for us, run them through
Well, I
as we
just
being
did
the owner.
I just did a quick calculation. It's a little over $100,000 in sales taxes,
Right.
just on those items, and I'm just wondering if we can have an agreement to where that run through the county to save that 4.7.
We would certainly want to do that. As long as the attorneys tell us we can do it, I agree with you. We should do that and then let them reimburse us.
And the other thing is, I want to stress those two major items that were also added back in. And I want to sure the board was aware of the fact that we're talking about terrazzo floors, which was around $450,000.
That's correct.
And these two structures that were added back in that basically are $150,000 to show off basically that there are solar panels. And I hope the board would understand that we would ask that those be removed because we felt like that was a little extravagant, that a nice sign or a plaque would do the same thing.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. That's not an action item, so we'll move on.
No.
You have anything else?
Just under the new business where we added those three items.
Okay, go ahead and take care of
The
this,
next
please.
one is, as I indicated in the earlier briefing, we do have a letter of retirement from David Ward, our tax administrator. And David's been with the county nearly 40 years. So he's ready to retire. He's left the operation in good hands. He's trained Alan Lumpkin extremely well. Alan is fully certified, has all the certifications necessary from the State Department of Revenue. And so he'll do an excellent job as the interim. And that'll be my recommendation to you at the next meeting, is that we appoint Alan in the interim. And then what this action item is for is to ask that the chair appoint a working group of 2 commissioners and the county manager to work on bringing a recommendation to the full board for a tax administrator. And just so the public understands, I'd mentioned it to you earlier, the tax administrator position is one that you appoint, not the county manager. County manager supervises that position, but you appoint it. So I wanted to make you aware of that, and that's why we're asking for this working group to do that.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Bell.
just for information purposes, as a county government, and if we want to promote somebody from within, do we have to post that, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Attorney?
No, sir.
So what I'm saying is, if we think that Alan is suitable for the job, I think the working group would be unnecessary. We could just go ahead and promote one of our own people. They trained for that for years, so.
Mhm. Well, that would be part of the discussion. And then we could bring a recommendation back to you.
Okay.
But I don't disagree with
Sure.
what you're saying. I
Sure.
think he's fully trained and qualified.
I think we still need to go ahead and appoint that group.
Right.
And if that's their recommendations, that's, if
Right.
they so choose to make that recommendation and not go through the process of taking applications. But I still think that you and 2 of the commissioners need to bring that back to the board. If that's my feeling. What, anyone else have any?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Martin?
is it appropriate that we name that group today and let them go ahead and get moving on it?
Well-
If it is, I'd like to make a recommendation.
Okay. Well, and if y'all I mean, if y'all approve it, then the two appointees are up to the chair, but I'm sure he would take recommendations from any of you on that.
Let's come back with that maybe later in this meeting, or give me a few minutes to think about it.
I just want to say one thing.
Mr. Page.
But I agree, I agree what he's saying, but I do think that group needs to talk and maybe look at, and I know Alan's a great guy, but I don't really know what his qualifications are really. If I was part of that group, I'd just like to take a look at it.
Right.
And I think anybody else would too, before you make a recommendation back to the board. So I think the working group is still a good idea. But we could still, if we all feel, as John said, then we could go ahead and make their recommendation without going through the entire process and save a great deal of time.
That's right. That's right.
As, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Clark.
And since we're on that broad subject of folk who are in some department has a great knowledge base on that department, it is it's a reward, I'm looking for another word, but when folk come into an organization, they work hard to try to see if there's an opportunity to move up in that organization. It doesn't matter whether it's in county government, school, police department, wherever it is. And I think it's a real valid consideration on this group's part to make sure that everyone up and down the line know they have an opportunity to work hard and move up in that organization.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Doherty.
Just for clarification, let me make a motion that we have the chairman appoint a working group to look into the matter of replacing David Ward.
Okay. I have a motion on the floor. Any other discussion? No other discussion. All in favor, show of sign of right hand. Motion carries unanimous. Next item, Mr. Wood.
The next item, we discussed the fact that Gateway's grants don't come in until about the 7th or 8th month of the fiscal year. And so it's incumbent on the city and county while they're going through while their fund balances are down and we're gradually rebuilding them, to help them with the cash flow. And we've made that offer. Both the chairman and Commissioner Daugherty and I have met with them, and also representatives from the city, to discuss this. So my recommendation to you is, and what we recommended to them was, tell us the amount that you need from these grants during the year. They've done that, and then we agreed, subject to your approval, that we would then front a quarter of that money at the beginning of each quarter. And so with that, the amount we would need, as it says in the memo that I gave you, the total amount is $414,477. So what we would need to do in early July is cut them a check for $103,619.25. So I'm asking you to approve not only that check, but basically these quarterly checks as a loan that is to be repaid every spring until they get their fund balance back up.
Mr. Wood has made a recommendation. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Camardi.
I would like to make a motion that we approve the recommendation made by Mr. Wood to advance these dollars to provide the continuity of services that have been discussed, and that we get the money back as the grants come in.
I have a motion on the floor. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Pate.
I'll ask Commissioner Marty a minute, just a little bit for clarification, that this money is a loan for the rural route, which we're responsible for, if he would do that.
So the.
Any other discussion? No other discussion. All in favor, show sign of right hand. Motion carries unanimous.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Daugherty.
While we're on the subject of Gateway, Mr. Parker, if I might inquire, I think we've discovered we've had a little bit of an issue in regards to the appointments on the Gateway Board, which exceeded the agreement of 6 years. Am I correct?
The resolution, the joint resolution by the county and the city said that people would serve 6 one-year terms.
No more than 6 one-year.
Together, consecutive.
And it's my understanding that our appointments on there have exceeded that 6-year term.
That is my understanding as well.
And Mr. Chairman, with that in mind, I would move that, that we appoint Joe Gurley to the Gateway Board at this time.
I have a motion on the floor that we appoint Joe Gurley on the Gateway Board. Any discussion? No discussion, all in favor, show sign of right hand. Motion carries unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Doherty.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir, Mr. Bailey.
as there are two slots, as I understand, that need to be refilled, is that correct?
That's my understanding.
Okay. Seeing as Mr. Doherty is our Transportation Commissioner, I would like to nominate him and as a motion to appoint him to the other slot.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Bailey.
what we need to look at, whether or not, is it our time to appoint the two? It's every other year that we do that.
I think it says for 1 year, the agreement says for 1 year terms.
Yeah.
And so it would be, you would actually do it every year. But
No,
when
I'm
it was
talking
in-
about the, 1 year we have 4, and the next year we have 3.
That was changed
Oh,
at the
okay.
request of the
Oh, yeah,
board, and
that's
you
right.
at the city and
I
the
remember
county
now.
both
You're
agreed
right.
to change that, so the sitting board is the one that makes the decision.
Sure, I remember that now. You're right.
Okay. Thank you. We have a motion on the floor. Any other discussion?
Well, I would
Please,
just,
Mr.
yes,
Martin.
sir. I would just like to raise the question of making all the appointments today versus what role does the regular appointments committee play in filling committee appointments. And I want to make sure that there's a fuller vetting of the discussion of appointments and this future committee of the board have an opportunity to look at all the demographics involved in members serving, who they are, just the whole demographic process of who is going on the boards and how it balances gender, race, party affiliation, and everything else, so that it will be a broad representation of the entire community. And not that I know that it is or not, I would just ask for that to be looked at before we fill positions going forward.
Okay, Mr. Parker, I think I'm right. On the committees that the county commissioners are actually responsible for and answer to the county commissioners, the appointment committee makes recommendations and we vote on them. And this particular board does not fall under that same category. I mean, this board this is a nonprofit.
This actually is a governmental agency that was created by the county of Wayne and the city of Goldsboro.
Okay. Any other questions? Or discussion? If no other questions or discussion, I have a motion on the floor. All in favor, show sign of right hand. Motion carries unanimous. Thank you, gentlemen. Is that all on Gateway?
Yes, sir, that is. The only other thing I had, that we had added was, I would ask that you authorize the chairman of the facilities committee, myself, and the facilities manager and the purchasing agent to hire a professional engineer from a list of 5 that we got on RFQs. We've narrowed that down to 2 to interview, and I think I misspoke. The interviews are from 11 to 2 tomorrow. I think I said 1 to 2. That'd be a quick interview for 2 of them especially, but it's 11 to 2 here tomorrow if anybody would like to sit in on those. But we're asking that you authorize us to go ahead and negotiate a contract with the finalist and then move forward with that so we don't lose any more time.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Doherty.
I so move that we appoint the county manager, the chairman of the facilities committee, and whoever they designate to be on a working group and authorize them to go ahead and contract with a firm.
Mr. Mayor, you do agree to sit on that?
Yes, I do.
Do you have any comment?
Yes, I do. I just want to make sure that for time is of the essence, that the board understands that they're giving us approval to move forward. It will not be approved by the board as far as any monies are concerned.
Right, but we will report back to you.
We will report back to you what that figure is, okay?
Sure.
That's what we actually voted on.
That's correct.
Okay.
Any other discussion or questions? If none, I have a motion on the floor. All in favor, show sign of right hand. Motion carries unanimous. County manager's already taken care of his comments. We're going to close session.
For the purpose of consulting with an attorney to protect attorney-client privilege.
Okay. Just keep in mind, gentlemen, we need to, if there's any way possible, we need to come back and wind up by about 15 or 20 past so we can leave. Cindy's got the van ready. We're having lunch at 12 o'clock out on the base, and we don't want to be late getting there, so let's try to, unless y'all want to come back for afternoon session,
No.
that is entirely up to y'all.
Mr. Chairman, I move we go into closed session.
I have a motion that we go into closed session. All in favor, should sign the right hand. Good evening. Wayne County Board of Commissioners is back in session. Right quickly before we move on to other commissioners' comments, I would like to announce that the Steele Memorial Library in Mount Olive is scheduled to have the opening on July the 20th, which is a Sunday. We think it's at 3 o'clock, but we'll clarify that before that date. But the people in Mount Olive and Wayne County is excited over this new library. Been long time coming. A lot of hard work, effort been put into it from the city of Mount Olive and the county of Wayne. And we're looking forward to their grand opening July the 20th. Thank you.
May I add something to yours just a moment?
Yes, sir.
The town of Mount Olive, or the veterans and Mount Olive Veterans Group of Mount Olive, has also prepared the Veterans Memorial right across the street, and I think we're expecting all that's going to unfold at the same time. It's a great compliment to the whole town of Mount Olive, and there's been some new pavement done. I want to just re-mention that a minute. It's just beginning to really look good, and thank all the commissioners, and thank all the Wayne County, and thank all the citizens of Mount Olive who worked hard to put the dollars in place to get that going. So it's a very, very, very good day for Mount Olive. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. Were you through with your comments?
Yes.
Okay. All right, commissioners' comments and committee reports. Mr. Bell?
I think there's been enough said about Gateway, so I won't bother that anymore. I went to the meeting, but everything that should be said have been said already about Gateway. I went to East Point meeting last Tuesday, and we was talking about expanding to 36 counties. Well, that's in sort of a standstill right now. The negotiating phase is going on. I think, and this is just me saying this, I think the two smaller units is not in agreement with East Point, the present East Point being the lead agency, even though we have twice as many consumers as the other two combined. So I think that's the big fight right now, is whether or not our CEO is going to remain as the CEO of the total East Point. So they're trying to work that out now, but I don't know what's gonna come of that, but I just keep you informed as we move along. The other thing is the juvenile justice meeting that I attended. Financially, they're in good shape. There's no problem with the monies that the state has put into the juvenile justice. As I said before, we're doing a real good job. We are probably number 3 in the state as far as what we do for our youth. But we are having some problems with the parenting side of everything, getting parents involved into the youth organization. But I will keep you informed on that. And that's about all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. Mr. Pate.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Attended DSS board meeting. We still, and this is not just Wayne County, statewide, we're having big problems with NC Fast. And actually, there are some counties that are looking at an alternative system, and the one that appears to have some merit is called Casebook. The state of Indiana has already adopted it. Some counties kind of wanted to go together and sort of did a pilot program. If I'm wrong on this, board, if you'll straighten me out, but I think that's something that's in the discussion. But there are, having said that, there are some improvements coming in NC Fast. There's things added in the Wizard so they can remove household members in a single step. A validation system to stop the multi-registering of people, because some people get registered over and over again. That's a long process. Help desk turnaround, sometimes days or weeks before to get an answer. And if you got an IS problem, you need an answer yesterday. A search feature and a fast help and help with job aids. Had a HR report from over there too, and we're having a few more turnovers over there than perhaps I'm a little comfortable with. And in some cases, it's and it's kind of widespread. It's not just one thing, but one thing that did come up more than once was the fact that they were unable to meet the salaries of, say, a sister county. And my suggestion was, if you got someone who has a great deal of experience, and if you talk to them about the commute and that kind of thing, perhaps we as a county can do something to keep that person here, because as you well know, retraining is a very expensive proposition. But apparently, and I had to think about it, and Ms. Jones reminded me that this board stopped that practice, I think, pretty much about a year ago. So if we did that, and I'm not sure that we did, that we may need to revisit that to slow down some of their turnover, because again, it costs a lot of money, and we don't need to be training for other different counties around us. We talked about Medicaid growth. It's huge, and it's not just North Carolina, and a big part of it is coming from the Affordable Care Act. And North Carolina is already 100,000 that's been produced, and 97,000 came from the Affordable Care Act. We're already, when we get the cases, we're already backlogged and we're behind, not even meeting the dates. And I think we had about 450 in Wayne County. There is a plan. Each county's been asked to come up with a plan, and ours is going to be with some increased staffing, because we gave 4 new slots over this year. 2 are universal social workers, so they can be moved and used anywhere. And they're going to be bringing in temporary employees and using staff from other programs and reorganize the triage of the work process. One good thing about that is all that work is done under the 25%, 75% rate, where the federal government will actually reimburse the state and the county 75%. So that is one good thing about that. I'll keep you up to date on that as I learn. I went to the WCDA last week, special call meeting, and I thought Joanna was right on by calling that, to bring all the older board members there with the current members, so we could, with her leaving, that we could look at not only the bylaws, but current practices, best practices that have taken place over the years, so we can all be on the same page, because boards change and you need to know where you've been so you'll know where you're headed. You've already had, and I think the paper's already written about this, about the Veterans Service Office, and I know we got it on our website, that we are listening to our customers, and our veterans groups continue to ask that we expand the hours, because they were having a hard time getting there or meeting the hours that we had. So, and I want to thank the Veterans Service Officer and her staff for working with us to expand those hours from 8 to 6 Monday through Friday. I think that's very important, that we do listen to our customers. And the veterans are jumping in to help. The group that I work, my military group, along with the Purple Heart, the coalition, they are jumping in to be volunteers to work as greeters. In many cases, both Sean and her staff person are tied up with a veteran, and it takes time, and it's a confidentiality thing. So it's difficult for someone to come in and not be acknowledged, so there'll be somebody there to talk to them, at least say, let them know that, it may be a while, or can I take your number, and they'll call you back and schedule an appointment. So I want to thank both the staff at the VSO and the veterans groups for jumping in and helping us out there. And finally, last Wednesday, I sat in on a conference call with Mr. Wood. This board had already recommended me to fill the term of Steve King on the executive board of the Association of County Commissioners, and we had 8 or 9 counties that participated in that conference call, and it was a unanimous vote, and I will be serving the rest of that for Mr. King. And I appreciate not only this board's support, but the other counties who supported me as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Martin.
I'd just like to report that I attended my regular wages meeting on the 19th, my regular library meeting on the 20th. Did have an opportunity to go to the Mr. Wood's reception, enjoyed the food, enjoyed seeing him out there all dressed up. Did get a chance to speak with several, well, at least one state representative, and interesting conversation ensued concerning teacher tenure. I won't get into the meat of it. I'll just say we differed on it. I also like to report that our county is into constituency service. I received a call from a veteran that, after taking a lot of notes from him, he had some problem with Wayne Memorial Hospital. Don't know exactly what we can do about that, maybe nothing. But when he mentioned DSS and our Veterans Office, then we have begun to check on that, and Mr. Wood had an email sent to those departments to give him some information back to make sure that we are serving our populations. Now, we can't reach across the whole world, but anyone that brings up our departments, then I want to thank the manager's office and his staff for checking on that. And I've kept a little bit of a running telephone conversation with him. Matter of fact, the last one, he called me back to let me know that he had tried to get to an appointment in Durham, I believe it was. So I just want to thank our office for doing those kinds of things. Also, I'd like to thank my partner right here for bringing up Medicaid. Although we may differ on why he brought it up, but I would just like the public to, well, this is an editorial for me, so I don't understand that whenever someone says that the Affordable Health Care Act caused our rates to go, our activity to increase, it's because the affordable health care is getting to people who never had that opportunity before. So those that have not been served are being served. I'm on the phone. I'll stop it at that, but thank you, Mr. Chairman. But I just want to say there are more people being served through the Affordable Health Care Act. And I also want to throw this in. And this is for the newspaper to do something with. I would like to know how much the medical field itself is preparing for the large influx of people. If there's 40 million people out there who does not have a card now to go to get their health care in the middle of the day, how is that going to impact on who is go out there taking care of these services? Should we be more proactive in getting people in the medical field and or attracting people to the United States who have medical degrees to take care of this new influx and stop fighting over stuff that is already in place? We need to be looking for the cure, not arguing over a law that's already in place. That's me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Really? Commissioner Cavardi took up all of my time, so I have no comment.
Thank you, Mr. Joe.
What? I hope the film was running, right? The camera was running. I'll be real quick. Some of the committees I serve on have already been talked about by Commissioner Pate, but we did have a facilities committee meeting on the 17th, and Mr. Woods and I were talking about this morning. Facilities in Wayne County is a huge task. It is tremendous, and we're making a lot of good progress. But at our meeting, we of course, discussed the sewer issues that we have out at Genoa in that area. And we talked about the report and the monitoring by Fraser Engineering. We also discussed recommendations for scope of work and sites for the Wayne County Detention Center and the Sheriff's Office. We also discussed water and sewer issues at the two middle schools that we're building. And lastly, we discussed facility services and projects, including equipment purchases. You know, in facilities, we spent a lot of money this year on equipment. You know what? In order to do a good job, you gotta have the equipment to do it with. In my business, if I don't have micrometers and calipers, we can't make anything. So a lot of what we've seen this past, well, actually 2 years in facilities with Milford Smith's direction, we are really getting a grip on our facilities. So, and I'm thankful for that. On the 19th, we went to the Highway 7 corridor meeting in Moorhead. You could have reported on that, daughter. And we heard a presentation on the US 70 corridor economic assessment by Cambridge Systematics in association with Stanford Hohauser Economic Development Consulting. But you know, the bottom line is, folks, you know what the biggest problem we got in infrastructure? Money, funding. That's going to be our biggest problem. And that is really some discouragement in play because of that. But it is what it is. As Commissioner Pate mentioned, we did have a special meeting with the Wayne County Development Alliance. We had an overview and went over the history of the Wayne County Development Alliance. Ernie Pearson did a great job, and he was involved in the setup of the bylaws and so forth from the initial committees of 100 and incorporating everything into the Wayne County Development Alliance. After that meeting, I'm on the WCDA Executive Board, and we had a meeting, and we are discussing executive search services. We're looking at maybe 2, 3 right now to help in recruiting qualified candidates for the position of the Wayne County Development Alliance president. As we all know, Joanna's leaving. And of course, we went, my wife and I went to the reception for George Wood, and he's not a new county manager, he's a county manager. He's been here a while. And I started to say that we went to the reception for Pam Wood, his wife, but she has to agree too, by the way. That's a family thing. But at any rate, we all enjoyed it. Welcome aboard, and we're glad to have you. And lastly, yesterday, the WCDA nominating committee met, and we're working on filling some vacancies on the Wayne County Development Board of Directors due to people rotating off. We have rotation off of this board, and it's up to the nominating committee. So we're going to be making some recommendation to the Development Board of Directors to fill some of these slots. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Gurney.
Mr. Chairman, first I'd like to commend and compliment Mr. Wood and the budget team for the budget process this year. It was very detailed yet simplified, and it was very organized. A lot of good informational support material in there, and that makes the process so much less painful for not only the Board of Commissioners, but the departments and staff as well. But my compliments to you and the budget team for what you did with it. By being my first meeting, I've had no committee reports. However, I have been reading and listening, and it appears that the Board of Commissioners have been very busy, and the Facilities Committee recently with the sewer issues we're having, and the schools and the detention center, et cetera. And I'm sure as we go along, we'll have some questions and comments on that. I would like to, if it's appropriate, attend the meeting tomorrow afternoon, if I can adjust my schedule, or tomorrow morning for the engineering, for the selection for the grants. I'm in Cypress Spring Creek Schools. I have an interest there. I'd like to attend. And lastly, it's an honor to represent District 4. But as important, more importantly, I'd like to be able to say I'm serving all of Wayne County citizens for all the things we do. And I look forward to working with each of you on here and serving with you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Gurley. I'm going to keep mine brief because most of the functions that I attended over the last 2 weeks has already been mentioned. I would like to mention that this past Saturday night, Mr. Wood and Pam and Linda and I went out to the base for the farewell dinner for Colonel Pettis. He is being transferred, he thought, to Miami, but all of a sudden they decided they needed him in Korea worse. So he going to Korea for 2 years. And like I say, George and Pam and Linda and I were representing the county. Turnout wasn't quite as large as what I had anticipated, but had a good dinner and good fellowship, and got to meet some key people at the base. And also, I'd like to thank the staff, the reception for Mr. Wood and Pam. I would like to thank the staff for their hard work and effort that they put into doing that. They put in some overtime, and also, basically, the same group were responsible for Joe's swearing in this morning, and they don't get patted on the back enough sometimes, but the staff did an outstanding job on both of those events, and I just want to thank them for it. And that's all I have. Anyone else have any comments? Mr. Bailey.
Mr. Cromartie mentioned about the gentleman had called and was trying to get an appointment at Durham. Probably one of the reasons why he was having a problem, federal covers this area. And it's very difficult for a veteran to get an appointment at Durham out of your zone. So that might be the reason why he's having problems.
Well, just to clear that just a little bit, when he called me back, he let me know that he was on his way there and some personal things happened to mess up his, it was, let me make sure you know, it wasn't the veterans office where the glitch was. He had some personal problems physically getting there, I think. So thanks for mentioning that, but I would want to clear it up, not give the impression that it was Durham or Rockford. No, they've had enough misunderstandings about it.
Right quick, before I ask for a motion to adjourn, we're going to meet in Mr. Wood's office right quick for a quick photo op. And then when the van is ready for us to go out to the base, so let's try to move as fast as we can. If no one else has anything, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I was just going to say, I wanted to take this opportunity to publicly thank y'all for the reception. It was extremely appreciated by me and my wife, and I agree with you. Our staff does a great job on these special events.
Thank you. Anyone else? Not, do I have a motion? Mr. Bell? You made a motion? I have a motion on the floor. We adjourned. No other discussion. All in favor, show sign of right hand.